Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is again Bennett and Lydia 2 weeks later coming to you with more insightful information about AI and how we can help you get started on your journey faster. And this is a culmination of the past 3 months, which we started and kicked off at Transform event in March. Really kind of as, and also as kind of a second iteration of our survey back in 2019 when we really began to try to understand the appetite for AI. So we're going to go deeper. We're going to do some comparisons. I am confident that Lydia will provide some really spot on analogies to help you kind of, just ground everything. So everything is not going to be, scientific and technical. It's really here to be practical. So we're very excited to launch, to reveal the results from our 2024 survey. In the meantime, quick little housekeeping or just quick little pulse check. If everyone, because we do want to test some things out, but if everyone could just kind of raise their hand and say, I'm here from Seattle, I'm here from Austin, I'm here from India. Wherever you're located and you're viewing, that would be great, just so we can make sure that we understand where everybody's coming from. So we appreciate that. But in the meantime, we'll get started because we have a lot to get through. I'll hand this off to Lydia Wu, VP of Product for MeBeBot. Lydia.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bennett. Appreciate it. And welcome to the LinkedIn Live, everyone, where we get to read out the AI Readiness Survey results that MeBeBot did in 2024. So I'm sure we've all sat through some typical industry survey results readouts where I'm going to read out a bunch of statistics to you. You're going to sit there and nod and try to screen cap and everything else along those lines. So we're going to undo all of that today because, one, I don't have a whole lot of stuff for you to screen cap today. It is going to be 27 minutes delivering everything that we found out in the survey this year. But also, more importantly, too, once we get to the end of this presentation deck, you are going to be given a QR code where you will be able to download the entire set of survey results and outcomes. So to save you a little extra effort, if you will, just hold your horses, participate in the conversation, and then we can go from there. So how did this whole thing start? Why on earth did we even do an AI readiness survey this year? Long and short of it, MeBeBot had an AI readiness survey done back in 2019 with Workology and This Way Global. And if we can all just step in the time machine and go back for a moment, 2019 was the era where natural language processing seemed kind of cool in the realm of employee engagement. And we are still kind of going like, ooh, AI, it's a very scientific thing that Hollywood talks about with very limited practicality in our day-to-day lives. Well, fast forward 5 years, here we are where I'm fairly certain we can't go on a single day without hearing the term AI at least 5 times at this point. I don't know if anyone has done a count, but I can guarantee you it is part of our lives at this point. So here's some good news when we kind of compared and contrasted the results in 2019 to 2024. On the positive side, all of the evangelizing that we've been doing around AI is working. HR teams are taking AI seriously. They're putting AI on the roadmap. And instead of kind of being concerned about, oh my gosh, how long is AI going to take to implement? They're more concerned about getting the right AI solution for HR and then figuring out what the benefits are for HR and seeing those benefits. However, and this is a really big however, there is the downside in that we still have the world of what I call haves and have-nots when it comes to AI for HR. I'm sure everyone has experienced larger organizations that tend to have more resources, more people, and money power, if you will, are taking a more advanced approach into exploring what AI looks like for HR. And we're going to dive into that nuance a little bit later on in the conversation today, because it's one of those like myth-busting things I definitely want to address with us. The other thing that is really surprising is that we still haven't quite figured out in terms of how HR priorities and organizational priorities need to align. I was genuinely surprised when we started asking about different types of digital transformation priorities, HR priorities, AI related priorities, how diverse the answers were and the responses were when it came to this is what's important to HR versus this is what's important to the organization. And yes, I am using the word versus very carefully here because there's a genuine conflict, which is a little bit concerning if we think about how AI exists or how HR exists in the context of the broader organization. So, teeing everything up, let's get into it. What are we actually looking at from a survey result perspective? First and foremost, this is a part where honestly, if you're in HR and you're listening to this, I am disappointed. I'm disappointed in a function that for a good part of the last decade has been preaching about the fact that we wanted to be at the table, we wanted to be part of the business, we wanted to be treated seriously. And the number of respondents who have no idea where their HR technology budget lies and where the money is in the organization. So about half of the respondents that responded to our survey, and the average sort of company size is about 5,000 employees for a reference point. Half of them, or nearly half of them, said that they are unaware of how budgets are allocated for HR technology in their organization. Like, think about it. You wouldn't go out of your house swiping your credit card, or maybe you would, without knowing how much money you have in the bank. And yet, as an HR function, we're literally sitting here and kind of going like, I want to do AI, but I have no idea where the money is coming from. So concerning, to say the least. And I think what made it worse for me, and in a way I'm sitting here going like, maybe we shouldn't have asked that question. We asked what level of the organization folks were in, and about 41% of our respondents, so a pretty significant chunk, were VP or C-suite executives. And the sort of gut-wrenching part for me in all of this is about 1/5 of them were not sure if their organizations had budgeted for AI tools. Like, let's step back and let that sink in for a moment, right? So if you are a senior leader in your organization where AI has been talked about, every company at this point has probably said the word AI in their strategy meeting at some point, and you're sitting here at the leadership table and kind of going like, I don't know how my company has budgeted for that. We're just talking about it. That's a little bit concerning, at least in my mind, when it comes to HR, especially as it pertains to owning the money and understanding where the money is. Now, here is the best part in all of this. So I've been talking a lot about like, yeah, we have no idea where the money is. But when people do know where the money is, and specifically having those budgets allocated to HR, there's a much, much higher likelihood for them to get funded for HR. So in understanding how the funding of your HR function works and following the money for your HR function in particular, you are actually having a better chance of being able to fund AI initiatives, or quite frankly, any other technology initiatives in the organization. So follow the money. It's not just a saying. Take it seriously. And honestly, ask the question, where's the money? Who owns the budget? And where do we go from here? All right. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about is measuring the outcome. And honestly, professionally, I wrote this as measure the right outcome. On the back end, I was literally wanting to write the title, OMG, HR has efficiency PTSD. So here's a really, really wonky part, okay? We asked people, so the business case for HR, ROI, how do you prove it? What does success in AI look like for you, et cetera, et cetera. 3/4, so 75% of people came out and said, oh, we have to be able to reduce cost, or we have to be able to prove that there is less time spent on HR activities in order for us to prove value in AI. So here's the thing that I kind of want to get into our heads today. HR needs to be a value player in an organization, not an economical player in the organization, AKA you're there to add value. You are there as a premium product, if you will, for the organization to have as a function. So for you to keep thinking, what is my efficiency? How much less resources can I do this to prove the value of a new technology? It's almost like you're losing at the starting line already in not having the right mindset going into what AI can do. Because fundamentally speaking, my personal belief is that AI is, yes, it's there to help you to be more efficient and operate on a better scale, but it's also there to help you to become more strategic, right? Because if we think about it, for a good part of the last 2 decades, we've sat here and said HR needs to be more strategic, less operational, less administrative. And all we've been doing is expediting the broken processes without really having a solve for being able to replace all of those broken processes and all of the administrative tasks. We've just been speeding it up. In comes AI as a technology set that really allows us to be able to truly remove the operational and the administrative tasks on our plate. And we're here measuring that tool as if we're still trying to reduce costs and becoming more efficient and everything else. So there's a bit of a catch-22 here. And I think the sort of additional kicker in all of this is the fact that for those who answer like, oh, I need to become more efficient, I need to prove the fact that AI has in fact reduced my time in operations, only 40% of their organizations actually cared about that. So it means 60% of the HR folks who responded like, yes, I want to be able to measure AI endeavors by proving the reduction in cost and reduction in time spent on activities, their organizations, their leaders are pretty much sitting there going like, not part of our priority today. So I think this is where we're getting our first hint that there is a bit of a priority alignment problem. And what I'm going to call the efficiency PTSD in HR, where we've been asked to do more with less for so long that we have wired it into our brains. With AI, we also need to do more with less. But in fact, we almost need to flip the equation and figure out how can we do less with technology and do better with it and deliver better results and better outcomes to the organization. So I think one of the things about AI before you really get into it is figure out what success looks like for you, not in HR's terms, but truly in understanding what your business wants to focus on and what are their terms when it comes to measuring success. All right, so I am progressing right on time. We are halfway through this session and we are on finding number 3. Okay, so this one is getting creative with AI use cases, AKA as Lydia calls it. Y'all, we are so boring. Like there is this piece of revolutionary technology out there. And all we can think about is how that technology applies to one single HR function, talent acquisition. I'm surprised, like I am impressed. Let's put it this way. I'm impressed at the fact that our friends in the talent acquisition vendorscape, as I'm going to call it, has done such an incredible job of pushing AI that the entire industry is now going like AI equals talent acquisition. It's phenomenal. Kudos to everyone who's been running marketing campaigns on that front because it worked. However, talent acquisition is only one HR function. AI is a whole category of technology. So when people are telling us most of the time, like, oh, we're going to figure out how we want to do talent acquisition better, and then there's a significantly less amount that came in second that said we're going to figure out how to do our HR operational services better. My question always came to, what about total rewards? Like, those pay equity exercises we've been trying to do forever and a day, and it takes literally a tremendous amount of labor to do that because you got to strip the files, compare them, and everything else. Why aren't we thinking about pay equity and expediting pay equity through AI? Why are we not thinking about how we can do relocation programs differently with AI? Because at the end of the day, what your candidates care about when they're relocating is, how am I going to find housing? Who do I contact as my real estate agent? How much are you going to fund me for my moving costs? Do I get a moving company or do I have to pack my own stuff? All of that can be expedited, and a lot of that is standard knowledge. Also, I'm just kind of sitting here going like, why are we not thinking about AI in talent management? All those times that we say like, oh, it's a people manager's problem to have that performance management conversation. Yeah, let's picture how much better the world could be if said people manager, while they were having that performance management conversation, had an assistant on the side that said, hey, you're talking 80% of the time, maybe tone that down to 50%, let the other person speak and let them give you some feedback based on the feedback that you've been offering. That god awful annual performance review cycle, maybe AI is the solution that helps us expedite that into the 360 reviews. So the whole point to this is AI does not equal talent acquisition. AI is a tool to solve the problems we have been having in HR for years at this point. And it's almost a evolutionary tool in a sense that a lot of the times when we had to duct tape and chicken wire our answers over the last 5-8 years, AI can actually take care of most of that. You can daisy chain AI solutions together to kind of help you solve that type of problem. So all said and done, please, if there's ever anything you do, get creative when you think about solutioning. It doesn't have to be the solution that you're used to for decades on end. Maybe there is a easier AI solution that will get you there and get you to your endpoint faster. All right. So fourth finding that we have is, okay, this is where I actually get to double click on my comments earlier in terms of we really don't have our problems aligned at this point, and we really don't know where to go. So about half of our respondents came out and said that, yes, we want to implement AI in HR for the next 12 months. Kudos to all of you. Great move, because it's one of those things where it's like, unless you get ahead of the curve or you get dragged along the curve, depending on your poison, if you will, and knowing me and my personality, I'd rather get ahead of it than being dragged along and told like I have to do something because the rest of the organization is doing it. So half of respondents said that. However, also half of them are struggling to figure out suitable AI tools for their organizations. And here's the thing. Wanting to do something to me is like step 0.5 to get there. Step 1, if you will, is understanding what your problem is and not what cool solution there is out there. I find a lot of times where HR technology strategy fails, and quite frankly, as vendors and solution providers, we fail our customers, is when customers look at us and they say like, oh, this is a really cool solution. I just want to be attached to a really cool solution. Cool solutions are phenomenal. Cool solutions kills your ROI, your business case, and your budget. Fast forward like 2-3 years when your contract ends, because someone's going to look at you and say like, so where did all that money go? And you'll sit there and kind of go like, oh yeah, that was a really fun solution to use. But yeah, no, we could improve ROI. It's almost like a really stupidly expensive science experiment if you're going to prioritize a solution over the actual business need and identifying the problem. So that's one part of it. I think understanding what your problem is and how AI can be a part of the solution is really important. Don't start with AI, start with the problem. And honestly, I can guarantee you for whatever problems you have today, there is an AI solution out there. That's how fast the industry is growing right now. The other thing I also wanted to sort of like myth bust a little bit is a lot of times I talk to HR leaders and they always look at me and they're like, oh, insert giant HCM vendor here has this AI assistant. Like, I don't know what else is out there. So maybe we just pay a tremendous amount of dollars and use that. Here's the really, really cool part about AI, and also part of the reason why I exited industry HR to come into the solution provider side of the house. There is literally a right for your size AI solution and right for your budget AI solution out there. The biggest problem, and it's something that the whole industry has to work to solve, is we're not connecting the right buyers to the right level of solutions at the right cost level to deliver what they need. And obviously, a lot of this is marketing and sales dollars, but also at the same time, it's kind of the power of the branding and word of mouth a little bit as well. So next time when you're thinking about an HR problem, I genuinely encourage you to hit Google. I know, ChatGPT, Cloud, whatever, pick your poison, essentially, whatever tool you decide to use, and just simply ask the question, if I have a budget of X and I need to solve this problem, and I would love for AI to help me solve this problem, how would you recommend to architect my solution? Or how would you recommend to purchase a product suite that will help resolve my solution? Because Going back to what Bennett and I were speaking about the last time we had these AI and friends chats, there is a very fundamental difference between AI features and pure play AI solutions. And the kind of sucky part about being a pure play AI solution is that you spend so much time, money, and effort in developing a beautiful solution that you kind of ran out of dollars on the sales and marketing front. So I will say there's definitely a lot of brilliant solutions out there at very affordable cost, if you will, that is right for everyone and that will help you solve the problem. So you don't necessarily need to gravitate towards a brand or anything else, or even have a moment of like, oh, crud, I really want to do this, but I'm not quite sure how to get started or anything along those lines. Like, quite frankly, even if you're an organization of 20, 50 people, there's still an AI solution out there for you that you can literally swipe your credit card and get the solution for. All right, I do want to leave a little time for Q&A at the very, very end. So I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit, which is aligning technology with priority. This is our last theme of the finding, and this is the one that kind of floored me a little bit, not so much as the first one, which is where the heck is the money to fund all of this, but this one kind of floored me as well. So in our survey, we asked about what is the HR objective in your organization and what are the digital workforce or digital transformation priorities in your organization. 82%, I kid you not, 82% of our respondents came back and said leadership development is my HR objective for the next 12 months. And here's a really, really weird thing. When I'm asking about organizational digital transformation priorities, nobody said anything about leadership development, which is really, really strange. Because if you think about it, in order to digitally transform your organization, your culture, how you treat skills, how you treat talent, and everything else in between, you pretty much need to have a leadership team to drive that, because unfortunately all of us are still mostly set up in a hierarchical form, and cultural transformation is still driven from the top down for most organizations. So to say that leadership development is an HR priority and then kind of completely dropping it to, I think, the 8th place or something like that in overall organizational priorities, that was a little bit surprising. Process automation, however, was one of those categories that was prioritized across both HR as well as digital transformations in an organization. But again, one thing I will say here, it's almost like HR is trying to run itself into the ground by thinking about how much cheaper and how much less we can work with. And we're not thinking yet about the value part of that equation quite as much. So where the heck is all of this going? So essentially what we're seeing in the market, I'm sure everyone is noticing this as well. This survey was done about a month or closed about a month and a bit ago. So we're definitely noticing some of these trends even in the last 4 weeks coming into fruition, which is the fact that, one, we need to keep in mind what gets funded gets done. So if you don't know where the money is, if you don't know how you're going to get funding, you can talk about AI. You can write the words AI into your strategy all you like. You're quite frankly not going to get anywhere. It's just going to be a very, very pretty strategy deck. Second thing is measure the right outcomes. Like, ROI for HR is such a huge challenge right now and it's not going to happen in the moment. ROIs don't happen when you say, oh, I need to implement this solution. Let me draft a business case, and boom, it's going to be implemented and I'm going to achieve that ROI. ROI in HR is non-linear. Sometimes you'll implement something in year 1 and you don't see the returns in year 3. So you really need to figure out what are the right outcomes you're going to go after. How long is it going to take you to get to those outcomes? And what are some of the stepping measurements, if you will, along the way that you can time sequence to be able to show ROI across all of the years, as opposed to say, like, if I do X, I'm going to save you Y. Like, life isn't that simple. Reality isn't that simple. And that's really a matter of truth for the outcomes. Third thing is get creative in the application of it. AI can apply to all facets of life. I'm sure you're probably unknowingly or knowingly using it in all facets of life at this point, which means that that can also be translated into the HR function. Fourth thing, focus on a problem. At the end of the day, AI is a cool piece of technology. It is still a means to the end. At the end of the day, HR is still there as part of the business. The reasons why businesses exist is shareholder, investor, and stakeholder value. And last but not least, double check your priorities. I would say make sure that whatever your organizational priorities are, figure out how your HR priorities play into it, because going all the way in full circle back into follow the money, Typically, we see organizations with more priority alignment between HR and corporation tends to get funded a lot better, and you're almost generating that ROI cycle yourself. Whew, okay, 4 minutes to go. So we went through a lot today. If you want a copy of the results, just go ahead and scan this QR code. You'll be taken to a webpage where you can download the full set of survey results. And Bennett, I think we've got a couple moments for questions.
Yes, we do. There's been a ton of commentary coming in. So we'll start with the one that just came in from Amy. So she just posted, do we need to put a disclosure somewhere if we use Gen AI, for example, to rewrite a job description? Interesting question.
So I think it's a lot more nuanced than do you need to put a description anywhere. So if you use ChatGPT to write a job description and you just slapped it into your ATS for whatever reason and posted that requisition, yes, I would highly recommend you to put in that disclaimer that you wrote it with Gen AI. But that said, if you're using Gen AI as a way to help you expedite the first 15% of your job description draft process, someone in HR is looking at it, business partners are looking at it, hiring managers looking at it. Once you apply that layer of human brain into it, technically I would say it's not a Gen AI product anymore. It's an AI assisted product with a human intelligence applied on top of that, in which case I wouldn't treat it any different than how you would any other typical job descriptions.
Yeah. Just a lot of great commentary that I was kind of spot picking and such. Yeah, for anyone who has specific questions, again, most importantly, I'm sure you'll have questions once you get through reading the detailed descriptions of each of the 5 major points that Lydia has brought up. There's a lot of supporting material there. So certainly, let's see if there's anybody else. Any other questions? Just some good, again, more good commentary. Governance becomes even more important according to and such. So I think that's a big topic about governance. Like, where does that fit into the journey of AI? We've heard about it a lot.
Okay, since we want to get spicy today, for whoever's listening to this, for a love of God, do not outsource your AI governance to IT. I mean, I love IT by all means. They are a phenomenal organization. There are things that are very nuanced about HR data, compliance, and everything else that they don't understand, nor typically have the capacity or patience for. So with that said, I think governance is incredibly important, and it's how you look at governance, right? So governance can be split into what is the data governance side of it? Who owns what part of the data? What is the training governance? How do we determine how our data is getting trained? What is the security governance? Who is going to look at the info security pertaining to AI solutions, pertaining to our data usage, pertaining to everything else? What is the decision governance around it? Meaning, what are we going to feed to our managers? What are we going to feed to our workforce? And who is auditing the impact, adverse or otherwise, related to those pieces of information that can lead to a decision or lead to a conversation? So all said and done, I think everyone in the organization is responsible for governing AI. And more importantly, I think one thing that we don't talk enough about is how AI is going to fundamentally transform organizational structures and how we traditionally think about roles and responsibility across different functions, especially in terms of even within HR. If you think about where talent acquisition and talent management overlaps, if you think about where total rewards and HR operations overlaps, we've been lucky in a way to get away from addressing all of these overlaps. But in a way, I think AI is almost forcing us to have some of these conversations and understanding if doesn't have to be done by a person anymore. What does BCDEFG then look like? And what are some of the downstream process impacts? Again, going back to the governance in that regard.
So Leo just posed the question about kind of, how is AI going to help in building trust? His observations, AI responses seem rather cold and such. So, what have you seen at, from other companies who have implemented AI assistants in terms of how they've made it more human? Not to use that kind of cliche term, but how do they make it more personal, friendlier, approachable? because some of them do feel like it's just kind of a static response. It's as good as your ATS automated email.
So step one, do not lop any Gen AI model or any chatbot over your existing knowledge base and be like, ta-da, we are done. That's an AI assistant. Good luck. This is how you get cold responses, right? Because if you think about how language models are trained and how certain instances of language models get tweaked on a per client basis, there's always models that will allow you to train for a culture, train for a personality. So the language that is used, the context that it is used in, for example, doesn't feel impersonal. It doesn't feel like you're talking to someone who's in a offshore call center, for lack of a better description, and has just been handed a script that tells you, I'm sorry, I cannot reschedule your flight today. Here's a $25 meal voucher. I'll see you in 12 hours type of thing. So very similar concept in a way, if you think about it, to how we historically have looked for our outsourcing providers for BPOs or anything like that. That's almost the same lens you have to look to your AI assistants when it comes to interacting with your employees. Not all of them are cut from the same cloth. Just because it's a piece of technology, all the language models and all of the coding that goes into the training of those language models are so significantly different that it will impact the culture, the language, and just sort of the interactions that your employees are having with technology.
Great response. Excellent. Any other questions? Again, here's a QR code. I've definitely posted in the LinkedIn events page the actual link to the page as well, which is the same link that this QR code will certainly drive you to. Again, we've given you the abbreviated Cliff Notes version of what you've seen. The results give you the practical takeaways of what you can start to implement today and how to think about each of those 5 important influencers as you are certainly getting your AI journey going, continuing, developing it, whatever stage that you're at. So.
And Bennett, I think we actually do have one more question. Do we need to build a business case to get budget?
Ooh.
Honestly, okay. So here's my personal opinion. I think every organization is different. If you feel like you have to present something in Excel to get budget, my opinion is that you probably screwed up the last 3 steps already. Number one, where's your relationship? How did you leverage this relationship with your stakeholders to understand what was important for them? Because think about how IT approaches Microsoft upgrades or implementing certain tech stacks. Yes, there's a bit of a business case, but nobody ever has to present it across the entire organization as HR has had to in the past to be able to get funding. So where is that stakeholder relationship? Number 2, where is the strategic priority alignment? And fundamentally, number 3, how are we thinking about money and how are we thinking about what it means from an ROI and value perspective to the organization before we pop that business case together? So in certain cases, yes, you absolutely need a business case because capital expenditure, operational expenditure, and the whole 9 yards are incredibly important to your finance department. But if you're solely relying on a business case to get funded, honestly, I feel like you might have been able to do something a lot sooner and prior to that conversation have taken place.
Any last minute other additional questions? I know folks have been saying thank you, so we appreciate everybody's active participation. It's always interesting with trying to monitor and mobilize and manage the LinkedIn event alongside trying to get through as many questions or spot those questions as fast as possible. So again, appreciate if we do end up seeing additional questions inside the comments area, we will definitely be responding back to you and through that. And again, if we want to put the QR code up one last time, Lydia, just for people, if they haven't scanned it yet, again, the links are also back inside the LinkedIn event page as well as one of the comments. So with that said, I hope everybody has an enjoyable rest of their Thursday. They probably have a lot to think about, a lot of new ideas that they are definitely going to try, think through. But I think for the starting point, as Lydia has pointed out, solve for your problem and really use that as the kind of the get start of understanding the problem. And then, everything kind of flows from there. So Not to say that there are other, not other major milestones, but that is a key part because, like Lydia says, there is a solution for your budget and for your problem and for your organization type. So a lot of choices. I think that is the other key thing that is to be noticed is that this is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. So there's a ton of things. We have a lot of resources. In fact, you can go to Lydia's homepage on LinkedIn and schedule some time and brainstorm with her about solutions for your specific business. Think about it. So she has this coffee talk calendar open to people. So anyways, and I wish everyone a great rest of their Thursday. This has been fun and eventful as always, as we start to think about what's the next AI and Friends episode going to look like. Anyways, appreciate everybody's time. And again, have a great Thursday. Bye.